I don't have a cold open.
Oh,
I've been waiting. Waiting for Guffman is what we're going to talk about today.
Thank you for that wonderful song,
Yeah,
Joe.
no problem. It is a wonderful song, and if you guys should go listen to it.
Stargazer, out now.
Was it even on that?
No, it's not. No. No.
Okay, cool. Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to Not Qualified Podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Zeph.
And he's Joe.
And I'm Joe.
And he's Zeph.
And today we're talking about Waiting for Guffman.
Hey, do you know that that's one of my all-time favorite movies?
Yes.
Cool.
But did you know?
Oh, that was directed at you, listener. So Waiting for Guffman is a movie. And it's a movie that I think more people should know about that are our age. And do you know why?
Yes, I do know why.
Okay,
I know why you're
figured you know exactly what I'm going to say. I guarantee you, if you're listening to this, maybe not all of you, but 99% of you love The Office. You've probably seen it 9 times because everyone our age has seen The Office 9 times. You have probably quote it on a daily basis. It's probably something that's near and dear to your heart, as it is to mine. I love The Office, okay? Yeah. But did you know that those episodes of that TV show, The Office, they didn't just come out of a vacuum. They were inspired by something. Joe, what genre is The Office?
Satire, parody, mockumentary.
Mockumentary, yes. A mockumentary is a fake documentary. It's a documentary of something that's not real, meant to be funny. It's fake. It's a mockumentary. Well, get this. Get this. In the 80s and 90s, there were a series of movies done by a wonderful director named Christopher Guest. If you don't know who Christopher Guest is, you do, actually, because he played the Six-Fingered Man in Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's also married to Jamie Lee Curtis.
He's married to Jamie Lee Curtis as well. And he's one of the funniest dudes on the planet. He's freaking hilarious. He's good friends with Rob Reiner, that whole group. Mm-hmm. He is a guy who, in the 80s and 90s, started directing a series of mockumentaries. Mm-hmm. The first one he did in 1980... Was it 89? Or was it in the 90s? It was probably in the 90s, wasn't it? Guffman.
I think it was the 90s.
I forget. The first one was This Is Spinal Tap.
Which was directed by Rob Reiner.
That was not directed by Christopher Guest, but he was in it.
Yes.
And so Spinal Tap came out in what? 80? That was 89, right? You're about to find out in just 3.
2. 1. 2.
Joe is a really slow Googler.
This is Spinal Tap came out in 1984.
84? It was that early? When was Waiting for Guffman?
Waiting for Guffman came out in 5. 4.
Wait. Oh, okay.
3. 96.
96. Okay, so it was over 10 years there.
So
This Is Spinal Tap was directed by Rob Reiner. It was a fake mockumentary about a fake rock and roll band, and it was hilarious. And then in the 90s, Christopher Guest started directing his own mockumentaries, and the first one of those was Waiting for Guffman, which is a mockumentary about a fictional group of local theater people. A local theater troupe trying to put on a show for the anniversary of the founding of their town. And this movie, along with the few that followed it, which we'll probably talk about sometime, are a huge inspiration for The Office. It's kind of what... This Is Spinal Tap, along with these movies, is kind of what kickstarted the mockumentary genre as being something that people liked and was funny, and it kickstarted that whole idea. So that's kind of a little bit of a backstory. Joe, tell me more about Waiting for Guffman and about Christopher Guest.
So along with some of his other movies like For Your Consideration and Best in Show and A Mighty Wind, all these movies that have that, mockumentary type feel, they're just making fun of one very specific subject, a very niche genre of movie that's pulled off so incredibly well. And he's those movies all have like the same cast. It's Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy and Parker Posey's in a lot of them.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good point. A good point is that all of Christopher Guest movies have basically the same cast playing completely different characters.
Yeah.
And they are all improv. There is no script for these movies. That's something that I should mention. Mm-hmm. These movies, Christopher Guest comes up with the idea, the characters, and then the general outline, but there is no script. Yes. And so the people he cast, the reason why each of these movies has the same cast is because they are the best improv actors in the business.
Yes, and truly some of the funniest actors
Some of the funniest people in history are this group of people. And they were in lots of mockumentaries and comedy stuff besides Christopher Guest movies. They've been in tons of stuff, especially Eugene Levy. So that's something to remember as well. Like these are unscripted improv mockumentary comedies, and I can't get enough of them. I love Christopher Guest movies.
Yeah.
And Waiting for Guffman is probably my favorite. Although there is one scene in Best in Show that I think is the funniest scene in just
talking
ever.
About the marionette.
The marionette scene. Anyway, but what is Waiting for Guffman about? What happens in this movie?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's been a few years since I've seen this, so I'm not the guy to ask.
Christopher Guest also stars in his own movies, so he plays a character.
Yeah.
In this movie, he plays no, he doesn't play Guffman. He plays what's his
Corky.
Corky Sinclair, who is a local theater whiz, a guy in this small town who has moved there, and he teaches high school theater, and he wants to put on a community theater show, and so he hosts auditions from the townspeople, the dentists, and other people who want to be a part of it. And they put on a show for the 100th year anniversary or 200th year anniversary of this town, which is a tiny town in, what state is it even in? Man, I'm drawing a blank on what the town is, what it's called and where it is. It's a fictional town, and it's you can tell that this is also an inspiration for Parks and Rec because Pawnee, Indiana is very much like this town. It's got weird, quirky traditions, and the people in the town will die for those traditions, and they love their town.
Yeah.
And to anyone on the outside, it looks just absolutely stupid. And they put on a show hoping to get noticed by a Broadway critic and go to Broadway. And much like The Office, you've got a bunch of characters who take themselves really seriously and think what they're doing is important. But the comedy comes from the fact that as an outsider looking in, you can see these people are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You know, that's where the comedy comes from. It's Michael Scott. That's the basis of Michael Scott's character, is that he takes himself seriously, but he's actually ridiculous. And from an outsider looking in, you know, that's the comedic.
Yeah.
So.
And I was going to say something about this, but I think it would be false. I was going to say I think this would suffer from Seinfeld's cliche syndrome, where like it establishes so much about what's popular that if you go back and watch it, it'd be like, oh, it's so
right.
It's not funny. But here's the thing: it's not. It's still hilarious, and it established what's still in today about movies and TV shows.
Right. That's a good point, because Seinfeld is cliche syndrome. That's the idea that, sometimes people our age will go back and watch Seinfeld or whatever and be like, oh, this is cliche. But it's not. It started the cliches. It's the reason those things are cliches, because it was so influential and popular that it made those things commonplace.
Yeah. I think it definitely will suffer from that.
It probably will suffer from that. But right now, we're in the golden age of mockumentary.
Yeah.
Even though The Office has been off the air for almost a decade.
Yeah, but we're still seeing the residual effects of it. People still love The Office.
It hasn't aged at all.
Yeah.
And
things
so,
like Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine all have that loose camera work, interview type style.
Yes.
Modern Family, they all have that same exact kind of filming style.
Yep. And this is where that comes from. Really, this is Spinal Tap kicked it off. Christopher Guest is still involved in that. And then Waiting for Guffman, I think, is Honestly, I'd have to rewatch A Mighty Wind because that might be my favorite of his. But I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'm really focusing on Waiting for Guffman. But I think if you haven't seen it, you need to go out there and watch it. You will see everything it's influenced, but it won't feel cliche. Like you said, it should suffer from that, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's still hilarious.
At least just yet.
The
John Michael Higgins. That's the other guy.
That's the guy, John Michael Higgins. The strength of these movies is the characters. The weird, quirky, dumb characters that Christopher Guest comes up with, and that these people can play so well.
Yeah. And
do it with a straight face. I don't know how they do it, but it's funny stuff.
Yeah, I think he's an incredible director. I think he's an underrated director for sure, especially considering all of these movies. Even though it's a very specific genre of movie that he's creating, they're all, award worthy.
They're all great. Yeah. He's one of my top 5 directors, and he's only ever made these kind of movies. Not only, but that's what I've seen. And so, it's a pretty cool accomplishment what he's done with his career. All right, any last words on Waiting for Guffman specifically, Joe?
No, I do think it's a really funny movie, and if you haven't seen it, please go watch it.
Yes,
I think
you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, if you're I don't know, anywhere between 13 and 38, you'll probably like it.
I would say that for all Christopher Guest movies. Best in Show, Mighty Wind, and then back to This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
You're gonna think those are funny if you're anywhere in that age span, I think.
Yeah, so, if you like The Office
and up,
then you're gonna probably like this movie.
Yep. Give this a number, Joe. 1 is your best. If 1 is the best movie you've ever seen, and 100's the worst, where does this fall?
I'm probably, if I'm remembering everything correctly about it and my own whatever remember liking about it, I'd probably put it somewhere around 24.
Cool. I'd probably give it like probably a 9.
Yeah.
It's just one of my faves. It it's on my list. So
yeah.
Yep.
Overall, great movie. Go watch it and smash that like button. Give us a review on Apple Reviews.
Yes, Apple Podcasts. Hit us up with a 5-star review. Buy some merch.
Yeah.
At zephfoster.com/podcast.
And if you see us on the street, give us a hug or a little COVID high five, elbow bump. Or not, I don't care.
Or whatever. I'll lick your eyeball.